Part 39. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 381. Chapter 381. You look good. To be honest, she didn't want to go through any more trouble. She didn't know which continent she would go to when she left this continent, and she had to spend time getting familiar with it. It's good to be here, the aura is strong and there is a place to practice. Just these days, the situation in Juya Forest is getting worse and worse. There are too many monsters, so just hunting them down will reduce the number of monsters to a very small amount. But there is no other way. In the past 2 months, they have also encountered many monks coming into this central area, killing many monsters and many monks dying. Especially the casual cultivator team suffered the most deaths, and they saved everyone they could. The sect and the immortal cultivating family are better. They have organization, strength, and magic weapons. They can still put up a good fight when encountering monsters. The 2 men cleared up the battlefield and moved on to the next target. Wanner, let's go, there's something going on ahead. When the 2 of them were 10 feet away, the roar of a monster came from in front of them. Yuan took Mujukan's hand and ran away in her arms. When the fighting scene unfolded in front of them, a group of demon wolves were besieging a group of monks. It was a group. There were not many left alive, and those few could not last long. Yuan quickly threw out her spiritual pet and asked the little snake to take it over to save people. She and Mujukan attacked from another direction. Mujukan rushed into the wolf pack with a flying sword in hand. Yuan held a 3rd-level talisman in her hand and threw it at the wolves, and then sent out 20 soul thorns. The wolves were suddenly attacked, and the Wolf King quickly sent out demon wolves to besiege Yuan and the 2. But the little snake and 5 5th-level spiritual pets had already attacked the wolves. The wolves suddenly panicked and did not hear the Wolf King's order. When the little snake saw the Wolf King, it gave up the demon wolf in front of it and shot straight towards the Wolf King like an arrow. When the Wolf King saw the scene clearly, he didn't know why the situation suddenly reversed. What happened to the 5th-level monster attacking the wolf pack? It even forgot to give the order. In a daze, the little snake bit it down the throat. Ouch! The Wolf King howled miserably, ran out of the pack like crazy, and shook his head violently, trying to shake off the little snake from the throat. At this time, all the demon wolves did not know what happened to their Wolf King, so they all stopped attacking and ran away instead. When the remaining 8 monks in the encirclement saw this, they all sat on the ground as if they had lost all strength. At this moment, they knew that they were saved. The Wolf King's howling stopped, and the wolves fled. Yuan glanced at the wolf corpses on the ground, brushed them away a few times, and left the corpses of the monks behind. The little snake brought the Wolf King's corpse again and threw it in front of Yuan as if taking credit for it. Yuan patted its little head and took away the Wolf King's corpse. Little snake, go and see those 5. The 5 spiritual pets. Yuan let them chase the escaping wolves. After the 8 people rested for a while, they all came over, saluted Mujukan and Yuan, and said, "Thank you, Senior, for saving your life." A nascent soul monk in the middle held up a jade box and said, "Fellow Taoist, please accept it." Mujukan nodded and reached out to take it and throw it into the storage bag. "You should leave here quickly. The demon wolf is very revengeful." The Yuanying monk had a look of sorrow on his face. He waved his hand to the other 7 people, who collected the corpse of the monk on the ground. Then he cupped his hands towards Mujukan and Yuan and said, "Fellow Taoist, then let's say goodbye and take care. Take care of yourself." Monk Nascent Soul left quickly with other monks. This should be a cultivating family. So many family disciples died all at once. Ugh, Yuan sighed. She just made a visual inspection and found that no less than 50 cultivators died. This hateful monster made Yuan feel powerless in her heart. I don't know what's going on with these worlds of immortality. At this time, somewhere in the Juya forest, The monk Soigny held his hand tightly. Countless monks came in these days, and few left. His cold eyes looked around, and he slapped a fifth-level monster that was approaching him hard. With the fifth-level monster screaming, two fifth-level monsters suddenly jumped out from behind the monk Soigny. The monk had no choice but to throw the blackbird out to block their attack. But at this moment, two fifth-level monsters attacked him on his left and right sides at the same time. Monk Soigny had no choice but to retreat, as five fifth-level monsters attacked him at the same time. Boom! Five powerful forces attacked him at the same time. At the critical moment, a small emerald green snake rushed towards him and rolled out of the way. At the same time, five fifth-level monsters suddenly appeared and rushed towards the five monsters respectively. Two monks, a man and a woman, also came over. The beauty of the handsome man and the woman is really like the immortals and fairies who came down from the sky. The little snake rolled up the monk Soigny to the two of them and put the monk down. Monk Soigny stood still, straightened his clothes, and looked calm. He glanced at Yuan, and finally at Mujukin, and said lightly, "Thank you both." "You're welcome." Mujukin looked at him and said politely, "Farewell." Brother Soigny glanced at Yuan and disappeared after a few jumps. "Wan'er, what does that look at you mean?" Mujukin's eyes were obviously filled with jealousy. Thinking of the god transformation monk she mentioned before, he looked at the way that man looked at Wan'er, one after the other. One glance. Yuan was still confused by him. When they heard the sound of fighting here, the two of them rushed over and happened to see five fifth-level monsters attacking him at the same time. Even if he was a monk who was transformed into a and was hit, he would still be seriously injured even if he didn't die. That's why she let the little snake and five spiritual pets save him. It should be to repay him for his previous life-saving grace. But what did that look before he left mean? Why don't you let the jealous person in front of you become jealous? Had I known it earlier, I wouldn't have saved him. Well, didn't I say someone saved me before? Well, it was him. Oh. So we don't owe each other anything today, Mujukin said with a half-smile. Isn't he good-looking? Mujukin held her waist and looked directly at her. Well, it's very beautiful. Is he better-looking or am I better-looking? Yuan twitched her lips. She knew that this person would go crazy when she saw that person. She said without thinking, "You look good." "Really?" Mujukin asked, holding her face in his hands. The look in his eyes was a bit cold. "Really, my husband is the most beautiful." Upon hearing this, Mujukin raised his eyebrows, and the coldness in his eyes disappeared instantly. He turned his lips into a smile, lowered his head and took her lips in his, and went straight in, extremely domineering. After a long time, Mujukin let go of Yuan and stroked her sausage mouth. "Does it hurt?" "What do you think?" Yuan rolled her eyes at him, smelling sour of jealousy. "Stay away from him if you see him in the future. He was a man, so why couldn't he see what the Soigny monk's eyes meant?" "Okay," Yuan replied cheerfully. The hair of the jealous jar had to be smoothed down. As for the monk in Soigny, how could we say that we would bump into each other, let alone what would happen if we bumped into him? End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 382. Chapter 382, All trees and grass are soldiers. With such a jealous and stingy attitude, Yuan could not feel disgusted, but felt very happy. She took Mujukin's hand and put it on her waist, and she fell into his arms. Mujukin was so happy at this moment. Did he think he was a little harsh to Wan'er just now? The little snake and the five spiritual pets over there came back. They saw their owners hugging each other, and the six simply sat in a row with their backs to them, waiting. In the distance, a pair of deep eyes became darker when they saw this scene. He glanced deeply at the petite figure, turned around and disappeared. He had indeed already left, but then he remembered that he had not taken the black bird with him. He wanted to take the black bird with him when he came back. Although he did not like the black bird, it was still okay for him to take a walk in the Juya forest. I don't want to see the two of them hugging each other. He suppressed the throbbing in his heart and left quickly. Puff puff. A flapping sound still woke the two of them up from their world. That black bird. Do you want it? Mujukin asked her in a deep voice. No, 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 Yuan shook her head. This was the black bird that the monk in black clothes had ridden. She wanted it. It would be strange if he didn't cut the black bird into 5 pieces. She quickly put the 5 spiritual pets into the space, let the little snake wrap around her wrist, and walked away holding Mujukin's hand. Leave the injured black bird flapping on the ground. They came to a waterfall. Yuan took out some monster meat and asked Mujukin to roast it. She took off the storage bags from the necks of the 5 spiritual pets, threw the low-level monsters inside into the black earth, and placed the high-level ones in a storage ring she specially designed for high-level monsters. The bags are still hanging back on the necks of the 5 spiritual pets. Waner is done roasting. Mujukin brought the roasted meat to her. He also picked up the roast and ate it slowly, with indescribable grace in his movements. What is this guy doing? He didn't say he gorged himself on food, but he never ate so gracefully. This guy was born in a family of generals. He has been hanging out in the military camp since he was young, eating meat and drinking with a bunch of big men. Yuan looked at him suspiciously, then picked up the barbecue and ate it. 2 bottles of wine appeared in her hands with her consciousness, and she threw one to him. A mouthful of meat and a mouthful of wine. This way of eating is in line with their personality. It looks weird. Mujukin took the bottle and, as expected, took a mouthful of meat and a mouthful of wine. Yuan curled her lips. This was the Mujukin in his mind. Slow and elegant, that's what a woman should be like. Woman, 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 say the important things 3 times. Mujukin leaned down, lowered his head and covered Yuan's charming red lips. Waner was hers, and he would not allow anyone to covet her. That man in Soigny was so outstanding. He had never been unconfident. When he saw that man, his self-confidence collapsed instantly. When he saw the way the man looked at Waner again, his heart was twitching, and he was really afraid that the man would wander away in front of him. He knows that the world of monks is different from the world of mortals, and there are not so many ethical principles. This does not mean that other people's women cannot be moved. Grab it if you like it. His current strength was not enough to compete with the Soigny monk, so he was flustered and confused. Mujukin could only protect his woman in his own way. He pried open Yuan's teeth and tasted her fragrance. As soon as Yuan's consciousness moved, the two of them appeared on the bed in the wooden house, and she let him take what he wanted. Both of them drank wine, which had the effect of drinking, and both of them felt like they were floating in the clouds. At this time, the spiritual energy in Yuan's dantian began to surge and surge. But the two of them were getting excited, so Yuan had no choice but to channel the spiritual power from her dantian into her jingmei. In this way, the spiritual power in dantian calmed down a bit. Mujukin's desire to protect her was not taken into account, and she had to let him know that she needed his protection. Otherwise, with the speed of her current cultivation, she would have reached the golden elixir perfection and reached the nascent soul stage. She has been suppressing her cultivation to give him the strength to protect her and not to make him feel that she does not need him. After it was over, Yuan endured the soreness in her body and put a pill in her mouth. After a while, her body gained some strength. She turned over and sat up, looking at Mujukin's sleeping face and sighing deeply. She really loves him, how can he not feel it? Well, these two fools are so unsure. Yuan placed a kiss on his lips, got up, put on clothes and came to the training room. Her cultivation level could no longer be suppressed after being subjected to such a torment by Mujukin. Sit cross-legged, with the 5 hearts pointing upward, and perform the exercises. After a month in the space, Yuan slowly opened her eyes and exhaled softly. Haha, the golden elixir has reached perfection. Yuan looked inwards at her body with a smile, feeling the power of the golden elixir's perfection. With a solid foundation laid, Yuan believes that it will take less than a year to attack the nascent soul. She hopes that the restrictions in the Juya forest will not be completely dissipated by then. Yuan tidied down his robes and left the practice room. Waner, come here. Mujukan was sitting on a chair in front of the wooden house drinking a small drink. When he saw her coming out, he waved to her. Wearing purple clothes, with a purple crown and black hair, the long hair like ink is spread on the shoulders, the porcelain white skin is flushed, the blurred drunken eyes are slightly squinted, and the already monster-like face is even more extraordinary. Yuan swallowed. Mujukan looked so tempting. She stepped forward and was pulled into his arms by Mujukan, who kissed her with a mouthful of alcohol. Why did you drink so much? Yuan turned her face away and blocked it with her hands. No, not many, only 5 bottles. Mujukan raised a hand, and the smell of alcohol sprayed on Yuan's face. Yuan was convinced. 1 bottle of wine cost 5 kilograms, and 5 bottles weighed 25 kilograms. The wine was not much, but it was very powerful. 1 bottle could make you drunk. What is the concept of 5 bottles? I asked you why you drink so much wine. Yuan took the wine bottle from his other hand and looked directly into his eyes. There was no trace of her in his eyes, they were blurry and he was obviously drunk. Yuan broke away from his hands, stood up, picked him up and put him on the bed. Waner, don't go. Mujukan quickly took one of her hands with one hand, and with a strong pull, she entered his arms. He turned over and pinned her down. Yuan's strength at this time was not as strong as that of a drunk man, and he wiped out 3 pieces, 5 pieces, and 2 pieces. Yuan is mad. What happened? Afterwards, she pushed him away, put on her clothes and left the room. Seeing the pool under the waterfall, I plunged into it and let the pool of water submerge me. She must find a way to make Mujukan normal. When this guy encounters emotional matters, he will immediately be in a panic. He will either escape, be extremely possessive, or be paralyzed. Why can't she? Wow. End of this chapter. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 383. Chapter 383. Chaoyang City. Just as she was lost in thought, a big-headed fish opened its mouth and bit at her. The speed of the big-headed fish was too fast, and Yuan had no choice but to duck into the space. In the space, she used a cleaning technique on her body, and when it was dry, she went into the wooden house. Mujukan hadn't woken up yet. Yuan turned around and left the wooden house, clasped an ice arrow talisman on her hand, and stepped out of the space. As soon as he left the space, a fishy smell hit him, and the surrounding area was dark. Hee hee. Yuan smiled, but she didn't expect it to be in the belly of this fish monster. This wasn't just food. Let's eat grilled fish later. Immediately, Yuan sent out soul thorns at the sea of consciousness of the fish monster. The fish monster made a few strange chirping sounds before turning the fish's belly. Yuan's consciousness moved, and the man and hairtail fish came into the space. In the space, Yuan cut the fish monster into pieces with a few swipes, then sliced the fish into pieces and grilled them on a few skewers. Well, not bad. The meat melts in your mouth and is delicious. Yuan said that after eating a few skewers, the flavor was still lingering, so she brushed it a few times and cut off a few large slices before grilling. After eating, he glanced at Mujukan on the bed, picked up the fish monster meat on the ground, threw the unnecessary ones into the black earth, and then came out of the space with the little snake. When she came out, she was still in the pool, so she simply dodged down to the pool. This pool is not small. Let's see if there are any fish monsters. When the little snake sees its master fleeing downwards, it flees in front of its master. It is the first to detect danger. Had it not bit the fish monster in time, the owner would have been too late to escape even if he had space. When the master and servant escaped to the bottom of the pond, they saw no fish monster. There was only a huge deep hole at the bottom of the pond, which should be the residence of the fish monster. There was nothing in it. Master and servant came here in vain. There is no best, these ferocious beasts can be as few as possible. Yuan went up to the shore, summoned a magical flying sword and went to hunt the monsters. One day later, Mujukan also came out of the space, and the couple became more and more ferocious in hunting monsters. Mujukan's Silver Wolf King also followed Yuan's 5 spiritual pets to hunt monsters. This is a powerful hunting team. Wherever it goes, the monsters have nowhere to escape, and the monsters are simply frightened by the news. A year later, the two of them turned half of the Juya forest, hunting countless monsters, and the spiritual energy in Yuan's space exploded. Unexpectedly, the black land and red land in the space increased by 10 acres each. Yuan didn't know why the space that had not expanded for so many years would expand again, but it did help her solve some problems. She took out the gray elixirs in the storage bag and planted them. Mujukan, let's go back, we've been out for more than a year, I'm afraid our 2 sons won't recognize us when we go back, Yuan said to Mujukan while the two were resting. Since Mujukan's incident a year ago, people have been silent a lot, and they love her more and more. Of course, the possessiveness is also stronger. It is totally not enough to have to fight her to death almost every few days. Mujukan grabbed her and put her on his slender thigh. He rubbed her face lovingly and nodded, okay, let's leave now. Originally, the monsters in the Juya forest were in a frenzy and wanted to run out. However, after the monks massacred them in large numbers over the past year, they have become quiet now. It seems that the ban has been stabilized. The monks speculated that those phenomena in the past must have been caused by too many monsters. After understanding what was going on, fewer monks came in to hunt monsters. Everyone should go back and recuperate for a period of time, and then go into the Juya forest to hunt monsters next time. Of course there are many monks who died this time. The two of them packed up their things and ran out of Juya forest. Half a month later, the two of them left Juya forest, but they were not outside Juya city. Mujukan hugged Yuan and flew out of the mountain. Outside the mountain, there were still some small cities and villages. Half a day later, the two of them stopped in front of a Chaoyang city. This Chaoyang city is very large, comparable to Juya forest, but more prosperous than Juya city. It turns out that this city is the most prosperous city in the world of immortality, and it is also a place where high-level monks live, because there is a top-quality spiritual vein here for high-level monks to practice. The golden elixir monks here walk all over the place, and they are the gods who come across them occasionally. So here is the most powerful family and sect of cultivating immortals in the world of cultivating immortals. The Xiaoxian family is the Rong family, and the Xiaoxian sect is the Chaoyang sect. In the existence of these two behemoths, there are 5 god-transforming monks sitting in each. They do not interfere with each other, coexist peacefully on the Chaoyang mountains, and jointly manage Chaoyang city. At this time, there was an endless stream of monks coming in and out of Chaoyang city. The two of them also entered the city hand in hand. In the city, there are crowds of people, all kinds of noises, and various shops are lined up, creating a bustling scene. On the mountain, a beautiful man in black clothes has his hands behind his back. He stands on the mountain with a pure temperament, his clothes are moving in the wind, and his skirts are fluttering, making people miss him forever. At this moment, he was looking down at Chaoyang city, and 2 familiar figures entered his consciousness. His eyes were startled, and then he smiled softly. This smile made the flowers on the mountain lose their color. In the blink of an eye, the person has disappeared, leaving only the broken flowers on the ground. In Chaoyang City, Mujukan held Yuan's hand and walked around. Such handsome men and beauties blinded the eyes of all the monks. The woman is dressed in silver robes, with a stunning face, and an airy and ethereal temperament. Her every move, and every smile shows her stunning elegance. She snuggles close to the man, and she is an indescribably perfect match for him. The man is dressed in purple robes, has a cool and handsome face, and has a handsome and noble temperament. It is completely opposite to the delicate and cold temperament of women, but it is natural and pleasing to the eye, as if it was born this way. Mujukan followed his beloved wife around dotingly, his hands unconsciously wrapping around her slender waist. Mujukan, can you buy this for your sons? Yuan asked, pointing to a child's cassock on the counter. Mujukan nodded and said warmly, okay. The shopkeeper was still admiring the beauty when he suddenly heard that someone wanted to buy his cassock. Senior, would you like one piece or two? The shopkeeper asked with a blushing face. Is this the way a child's cassock should be worn? The cassock Yuan pointed to was made of separate clothes and trousers, not an ordinary robe. Yes, senior. Then bring me 4 sets. It just so happens that each of the 2 treasures has 2 sets. I will buy a bigger one. Okay, senior, wait a minute. The shopkeeper turned around and entered the inner room, came out with a jade box, and put it on the counter. Yuan opened it and saw that the styles were the same and the 4 colors were suitable for boys. She nodded to the store, paid the spirit stones and left. I didn't expect that the cassocks sold in such a small shop are of good quality. Yuan looked back at the shop and couldn't help but praise it. After all, it is the most powerful and prosperous city in the world of immortality, Mujukan said. Along the way, Yuanying monks encountered no less than 20. End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 384. Chapter 384, Captivity. The Holy Land of Immortal Cultivation is the Holy Land of Immortal Cultivation, and Mujukan is yearning for it. He glanced at Yuan. There was no yearning in her eyes, only novelty. Mujukan knew it, and he just thought about it. Yuan's personality was different. She liked quiet places and didn't like such noisy cities. If she lived alone, he was sure that Yuan's favorite place would be a place like Juya Forest. He is different, he is a man, shouldering the mission of making the family prosperous and the man strong. The 2 of them were watching as they walked, and somewhere unknown to them, a pair of deep eyes kept staring at them. Of course the most important thing is Yuan, and Mujukan also caught a glimpse of him from the corner of his eye. The 2 people's spiritual consciousness is so powerful, but they didn't realize it. The 2 of them went to Fangxi again. There were a lot of monster corpses in Fangxi, and Yuan bought them all in one go. Xuanyi Daxia was puzzled. Why did she buy the corpse of the monster? He knew how many monsters the 2 of them had killed in the Juya forest. Even if they didn't sell them, they still bought so many. Could it be that her spirit snake Tengshi wanted to eat them? The soaring snake is already at level 5, so it is impossible for him to still eat the meat of those low-level monsters. Xuanyi Daxio seemed to be very interested. He kept following the 2 of them to see what they were doing. Yuan and I went to a magic weapon collecting shop and sold some low-level magic weapons that were no longer needed, including the 10-story attic where Mujukan refined it. He didn't think it looked good, so he simply sold it and refined it later. Things he disliked, the shopkeeper liked very much. This kind of attic was most suitable for a family cultivating immortals. The shopkeeper was not stingy and gave him 500,000 spiritual stones. Wandering until it was almost dark, Yuan still had more to say and couldn't stop at all. Waner, it's getting late, we should go. Mujukan smiled. As expected, Women love shopping and are best at shopping. This is their nature. If many shops hadn't been closed, he would have been shopping with her. Yuan raised her eyes and saw that it was true. She nodded, took Mujukin's arm and walked to the teleportation formation. There are not many pedestrians on the street, and there are not many people going to the teleportation array. After all, the peak period has passed. When the two came to the teleportation array, they saw many monks turning around and leaving. "What's going on?" Yuan asked. "I don't know, let's go and take a look," Mujukin said. "Hey, why has this teleportation array stopped?" A monk shook his head and came out, just in time to meet the two of them. "Fellow Taoist, why did the teleportation array stop?" "Haha, Taoist friends, the monk saw that two monks with stunning looks were talking to him. He looked at Yuan and didn't know what to say next. "Speak quickly." Mujukin's face sank, he shouted sternly, and at the same time, he released some pressure and pressed directly on the monk. "Looking for death? Dare to look directly at Wanner in front of him." "Ah, I don't know." The monk staggered, waved his hands and ran away. The two of them went in directly. There were no guards guarding the teleportation array. Only the people who came to sit in the teleportation array looked at it and left again. "Let's go and find an inn to stay in," Yuan said. The two of them found an inn to stay in the city. Soigny Daxiu, who was standing on the top of the mountain, relaxed his frown when he saw them entering the inn. At first, he had given up thinking about her and never expected to see her again. "It's just that you can't stay like this for a while." Soigny Daxiu's eyes looked at the inn and he didn't leave for a long time. After Yuan and Mujukin entered the inn, they meditated for a while and then fell asleep. The next day, Yuan opened her eyes. "Huh? What's going on? Mujukin, Mujukin." Yuan turned over and got up and shouted, "What does this mean? This is not an inn. This is a woman's boudoir, with expensive furniture and luxurious decoration. Why did she come here after just sleeping? Where is Mujukin?" She shouted just now, but no one answered her. Yuan released his spiritual consciousness, but found that there were restrictions in the room, and his spiritual consciousness could not be released outside. She got up, only to find that all her clothes had been changed. She rushed to the door and reached out to open it. Just as she thought, it couldn't be opened. Yuan became fierce and slapped the door hard. "She can't get out, who knows what will happen to Mujukin? If he found that she was missing, he wouldn't be anxious to die. With his temper, he wouldn't drive himself crazy." Bang, the palm hit the restraint, but it bounced back, making her stagger. Yuan got up and glanced around the room angrily. Needless to say, she must have been kidnapped and imprisoned here. Looking at the furnishings in this room, they are not something that ordinary monks can have. Who kidnapped her? Who did she mess with? Yuan sat on the ground dejectedly. Next door to the room, Xianyi Daxia was drinking tea leisurely, and everything about Yuan was in his eyes. He picked up the teacup, swung it gently with his hand, and fixed his eyes on the vibrant tea in the cup. His hand covered his heart, which was beating loudly. Finally she was captured. With a wave of Soigny Daxia's hand, she appeared in Yuan's room. Yuan's eyes were filled with tears. She was worried that Mujukin would be worried to death. She was thinking about how to get out, but there was no other way, so she released the spiritual pet in the space. Once they come out, they will definitely cause a disaster. She doesn't believe that the thunder disaster caused by 5 fifth-level monsters can't break open the house. It is even possible to chop Chaoyang City into ashes. She didn't believe it even more. The person who attacked her had nothing to do with the two giants in Chaoyang City. The teleportation array was stopped first. Who in Chaoyang City had the power to stop the teleportation array? It is no longer easy to kidnap her in the inn. Just when she was about to take action, a person suddenly appeared in the room. Ah! Why is it you? Yuan saw the person clearly. Wearing a mysterious dress, with an extraordinary temperament and an alluring face, he appeared in front of her with a smile on his face. Those gentle eyes contain a deep love that cannot be dissolved. Love. Yuan was so frightened that she broke into cold sweat on her vest. Could this be the person who kidnapped her? Soigné Daxio nodded gently. Yes, it's me, my name is Rongxiu. Rongxiu? Did you kidnap me? Where is my husband? What did you do to him? Yuan suddenly stood up, walked to Rongxiu in a few steps, and asked him eagerly. Rongxiu, this surname and cultivation level have explained everything. The most powerful cultivating family in Qinjiao continent? Rongxiu felt inexplicably uncomfortable when he saw her in such a hurry. The smile on his face faded and his voice was cold as he said, whether he is good or not depends on you. It depends on me? What do you mean? Yuan was confused. What was this and what was it? Rongxiu's cold eyes stared at her steadily. Yes, as long as you stay with me forever and be my wife, Mujukan will be fine, as well as the 2 children in Juyo City. Yuan opened her eyes in disbelief as she stared at the man in front of her, who was so beautiful that she couldn't live in this world, that he could actually say such shameless words. End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 385. Chapter 385 Breaking the Jar. Yuan was so startled that she took a few steps back and staggered to sit on the bed. She shook her head. How could this be possible? She raised her eyes full of contempt, a sanctimonious thing. She had really looked up to him before. She said angrily, "You are also a great cultivator after all, why don't you show any shame? You dare to threaten me with my husband and my son, don't blame me for destroying your Chaoyang city and your Rong clan." Yuan is already full of anger and threats. Who wouldn't? Damn it, she has been kidnapped by men twice, but this time she was kidnapped by Mujukan. Rongxiu just frowned after hearing this. He didn't think Yuan had this ability. Destroy Chaoyang city and destroy the Rong family. What a loud tone. Does this woman know that what she said does not pose any threat to him at all? He checked carefully and found that there was nothing in her except a storage bag. What ability or magic weapon did she have to destroy it? Think about it carefully. I won't force you, I'll give you a day, or I'll kill you right away, Rongxiu said coldly, touched Yuan's body a little, and then disappeared. Depend on. Yuan fell on the bed. He gave him a lot of time in one day. It just so happened that had imprisoned her consciousness and spiritual power just now. It seemed that she was going to be in bad luck. Wuo, Mujukan, where are you? Yuan howled a few times and said she was done. There was nothing she could do if she was trapped in this room. Mujukan outside was almost going crazy. It had only been 1 day and 1 night, and he was very haggard, with a patch of green sprouting from his beard on his chin, and his eyes full of red threads were looking around in the crowd. He was still mumbling, "Waner, where are you?" When he woke up after sleeping all night, his sky had fallen. Not only did he sleep in the forest for no reason, Waner was still missing. He is not stupid. Who else can do something to the monks in Chaoyang city without anyone noticing? More. So he hurried back to Chaoyang city to ask around and search. 1 day passed and nothing was found. Mujukan sat alone in the corner outside the city in despair. He looked at the sky. He didn't know what to do at this time. His mind kept buzzing, and after a while his eyes became confused, and then he closed them as if falling asleep. "Lord! Come in," Rongxiu's faint voice sounded, but the voice was unusually pleasant. A man in black walked in. He bowed to Rongxiu and said, "My lord, that man is already a cripple." "Okay, good job, Let's get down. Rong Xiu waved his hand, with a hint of cruelty at the corner of his mouth. As a major repairman, his hands are clean. It depends on his fate whether he should be spared. Rong Xiu came to Yuan's room and returned to his otherworldly immortal appearance. Yuan looked at him with disgust. You. Rong Xiu suddenly came to her, reached out and grabbed her neck, and lifted her up. How could she look at him like this? What kind of woman can't get his dignified transformation into a god? Who dares to disobey him? Cough cough cough. Yuan was choked by this sudden pinch, and she couldn't breathe smoothly. She stared at Rong Xiu's angry face. Boom. Rong Xiu let go of his hand and Yuan fell on the bed. Yuan stroked her neck, panted heavily, turned her head, and stared at Rong Xiu with hatred. Rong Xiu had never been treated like this by a woman in his life. He swung his big palm and slapped Yuan on the face. Immediately, Yuan's fair face became red and swollen. Kill me if you dare, Yuan stared at the man bitterly. Bah, I used to say that he was better looking than her man, how could he be so good looking? Not only ugly, but also shameless. Haha, how could it be? Rong Xiu's face changed and a gentle smile appeared on his face. He directly bullied Yuan and grabbed her chin to prevent her from moving. I didn't expect you to be so spirited. I am not as good as that good-for-nothing man like you. I will still love you and let you have a son. Rong Xiu said the last word with a smile on his face, but his tone was cold. Yuan could not speak as his chin was held by him. The fire in her heart burst out, and her face suddenly turned red from holding it back. When their eyes met, Rong Xiu saw that her face was red from suppressing pain and thought she was shy. He moved his body, stretched one hand to Yuan's waist, flipped his fingers, and untied Yuan's clothes in a few strokes. Yuan was so frightened that she pushed her with her hands and kicked her legs, tears streaming down her face. Rong Xiu raised the corners of his mouth. This woman had always looked like she wasn't afraid of him. Was she afraid now? Late. He exerted force, and all that was left on Yuan was her dirty clothes and trousers. Yuan was desperate. Her mind was like a volcano erupting. With a bang, she fainted. Rong Xiu was stunned for a moment, and after a quick glance with his consciousness, he suddenly fainted. Huh! Rong Xiu stood up and glanced at her body, including her neck where he had pinched her red. He glanced at Yuan, turned around and left. Yuan woke up faintly and saw herself lying on the quilt. She reached out and touched it, and found that the obscene clothes and pants on her body were still there. She sat up. Except for the discomfort in her jaw, neck, and face, she was fine. She breathed a sigh of relief. She had escaped this way, she could escape today but not tomorrow. Yuan put on her coat and sat cross-legged on the bed. She remembers that when she was kidnapped for the first time, she used her technique to absorb moonlight to break through the restriction of the sea of consciousness. Let's not talk about the moonlight this time, but the prohibition imposed by the Huashan monk is not something that her little golden elixir can easily break through. Well, if I had known, I would have released my spiritual pet to induce thunder and calamity when I woke up. It's hard to buy even spiritual stones. I knew it earlier. Yuan Hui's intestines turned green with regret. She felt that the sky was not responding to her and the earth was not functioning properly. It's my own fault too. Why are you still talking nonsense when you have the chance? Just do it. Never move your mouth when you can move your hands. She really died from talking too much. Yuan sat there stupidly for 3 days. 3 days later, Rong Xiu came to her room in a dusty state. He sat silently opposite Yuan and stretched out his hand to hold her hand. Yuan shrank her hands and put them behind her back. What are you going to do to let me go? Follow me. Good. Yuan closed her eyes. She just wanted this body. She gave it to her. But I want you to swear a demonic oath. Haha, do you think I'm stupid? Rong Xiu stood up, patted the non-existent ashes on his body, walked in front of her, pinched her chin and said, "My tolerance is very limited, and I swear to return the demon. No one dares in this world. The graves of those who bargain with me are covered with grass." "Then prepare to kill someone." Yuan looked at him sarcastically. "Since she can't get out, she will break the pot, so it doesn't matter. You really don't dare to take me seriously?" Rong Xiu's good temper ran out. "What are you afraid of? You are a major cultivator, so how dare you lift the restrictions on me?" "Humph, your provocation method is still useful. I will help you. Let's see what kind of waves you can come up with." End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 386. Chapter 386 Successful Escape. As expected, Rong Xiu released Yuan's restraint with a wave of his hand. The woman he wanted really didn't bother to use this method, but this woman didn't take him seriously at all, otherwise why would he use this method? Yuan felt relieved, but she didn't show it on her face, still looking at Rong Xiu like a cockfighter. As long as the restrictions in her sea of consciousness are lifted, no one will stop her from leaving. Yuan's consciousness moved, and a small snake appeared on her wrist. Rong Xiu naturally discovered the little snake. He was wondering, where did this soaring snake come from? He had searched it all over before, and he was also worried that she would escape using her spiritual pet, so he imprisoned her. He immediately became alert and waved his hand to impose another ban. How could Yuan give him another chance to imprison her this time? When Rong Xiu wielded the restraint, Yuan's master and servant disappeared without a trace. Rong Xiu was shocked. His consciousness immediately scanned the room in all directions, and Yuan's master and servant had indeed disappeared without a trace. Rong Xiu was angry. How could he fall into her provocation? He immediately dodged and flew outside again, searching everywhere with his consciousness. There is a jade teleportation talisman in the world of immortality. Although there is no spatial fluctuation in the room, Rong Xiu believes that Yuan used the teleportation talisman. If it is a concealment talisman, it will be invisible to his powerful spiritual consciousness. In the space, Yuan patted her chest. Fortunately, she could dodge quickly. This was also the reason why her consciousness was as good as Rong Xiu's. But her space may have been exposed. Another thought, it is better to be exposed than to be controlled by others. Now is the time. Yuan's eyes narrowed. Don't blame her. If you don't let her go, then you will destroy this place, no matter where it is. Then Yuan's consciousness moved, and a fifth-level monster appeared in the room. One is enough. If it doesn't work, just let them out again. I'm just sorry for these monsters. Without any defense, it would be difficult for the monster beasts to successfully overcome the tribulation, but she also told the monster beast Xiaoking's method of overcoming the tribulation. Whether it works or not depends on its fate. Sure enough, when the fifth-level white orphan appeared in the room, it was locked. Dark clouds came over the sky and there was thunder. Huh? What's going on? Rong Xiu looked at the dark clouds gathering in the sky. This is a thunder calamity. Who among the Rong clan wants to survive the calamity? Rong Xiu glanced at the white fox in the room and was startled. Damn it! Rong Xiu roared violently. He now understood what Yuan said about destroying Chaoyang City and the Rong clan. He never thought that the woman would do it in such a way. Rong Xiu regretted his mistake and hurriedly asked his people to leave here. His courtyard is now in complete chaos. What's going on? Who is here to survive the tribulation? Rong Nantian, the leader of the Rong clan, said as he looked at Rong Xiu's yard. He immediately flew into the air and stared at Rong Xiu's yard. The courtyard where Yuan is located has restrictions and formations, so others cannot see what is in the house. You can only see people around you flying away from the yard quickly. The other 4 elders of the wrong tribe were also alarmed at this time, and they all flew into the sky to watch. Who in their clan has advanced to the tribulation of divine transformation again? The 4 of them looked at each other and shook their heads. Of course, no matter who it is, there is an extra God-transforming monk in the clan, and his strength is strong again. That and the strength of the Chaoyang sect have expanded again, and their wrong clan is truly the strongest clan in the Qinjiao continent. 4 elders and old gods are watching the tribulation. At the same time, the elders of the Chaoyang sect also flew into the air and looked at the place where the wrong clan was. Their expressions are no better than those of the elders of the wrong clan. They are all suspicious. If the people of the wrong tribe successfully advance to become gods, the balance between their 2 major forces will be broken. This is not a good thing. But when it comes to overcoming the tribulation, you can only watch. No one can get close to the range of the thunder tribulation. When you go to the area of Leiji, Jilei will treat you as someone who helps you overcome the calamity. Those who go there will not only get hit but also double the hits, so just watch. Whether it will be successful or not remains to be seen, as the God transformation tribulation is not that easy to overcome. Rong Xiu was extremely angry at this time. He did not dare to withdraw the formation and restraint. Once withdrawn, the white fox inside would be exposed. Whether it succeeds in overcoming the tribulation or not, it has nothing to do with him. This time I really shot myself in the foot. He has to find a way to help it survive the disaster. Otherwise, the thunder will not smash the wrong clan into ruins. Rong Xiu gritted his teeth and his intestines turned green. How could he put this person here? Rumble, click, click, click. A thunderbolt as thick as an arm struck down in full view of everyone. Zhizhizzy. The white fox lay on the ground shaking in pain. There is still a formation to block some of the power of thunder and lightning, otherwise it would have been torn apart. That's it, the white hair on its body was chopped into burnt black. Rumble, click. Second way. The third way. When the 4th calamity thunder came down, the white fox rushed towards the calamity thunder. Ah! The onlookers were shocked, it was a white fox. At this time, the formation was broken and the house was turned into a pile of ruins. Just under the ruins, a ray of light escaped outside, and no one noticed it. Everyone's attention was focused on the white fox that was more than 10 feet tall and flew into the air. Oh, no, it's Jiao Hu. Yuan Dun entered the space after a short distance. In this way, he arrived at the gate of Chaoyang City in half a stick of incense. She wants to find Mu Jukan. When he sees Jilei and Baihu, he will definitely think that she did it. Yuan's consciousness began to search at the gate of the city. There was a huge crowd of monks outside the city gate watching the white fox survive the calamity. At this time, Mu Jukan was sitting blankly outside the inn where they stayed. His hair was unkempt, his clothes were dirty and smelly, and he was worse than a beggar. He didn't know why he came here, and he didn't leave even after he came. The innkeeper couldn't drive him away no matter how hard he tried. Even punching and kicking him were of no use. If he really couldn't drive him away, he would let him go. Anyway, this man didn't do anything, he just sat there blankly. Yuan searched for a while at the city gate, but there was no one there. She immediately went into the city and searched for him in the city. She was extremely anxious and didn't know where Mu Jukan was. But it is certain that Mu Jukan will not leave here before finding her. Yuan glanced around the city and didn't see that figure. Most people in the city are now looking at the calamity thunder in the sky, which is easy to find. Yuan felt an ominous feeling in her heart at this time. Wouldn't Rong Xiu do something dirty to Mu Jukan? If that were the case, she would definitely destroy the wrong clan. Just when Yuan was about to give up, there was a beggar sitting in front of the inn where she disappeared. The clothes were so familiar. No, 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 not just the clothes, but also that face. Although she couldn't see her true face clearly, Yuan felt that it was Mujukan. Yuan's heart was tightened, her eyes were sore, and her tears couldn't stop flowing. Why is Mujukan like that? Did he really make a fool of himself? Yuan ran away quickly. End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 387. Chapter 387 Rongxiu chases after him. None of the monks watching the fun paid attention to her. If they did, they wouldn't know what was going on. She ran over quickly. Mujukan Yuan ran up to him. Is this still the handsome Mujukan? Yuan couldn't help hugging him and sobbing softly. Mujukan had no reaction. Huh? This is it. Yuan raised her head in confusion and wiped away her tears. Mujukan was still dumbfounded and didn't react at all. Senior, who are you? This man has been here for several days and has not moved or left at this time, the shopkeeper came out and said. Yuan looked at the shopkeeper and really wanted to kill him with one palm. Looking at the fact that he only has foundation building skills, he would not be able to find out if Rongxiu did it in the inn. Yuan said nothing, stood up, picked up Mujukan and walked quickly towards the teleportation array. When Rongxiu frees up his hands, it will be troublesome again. There are many people coming to the teleportation array, but not many leaving. It takes 20 people to teleport once, so Yuan directly handed over the spirit stones for 20 people and carried Mujukan into the teleportation array. When the teleportation array was activated and they teleported away, Yuan breathed a sigh of relief. Yuan did not delay the next transmission. After several twists and turns, he finally arrived at Juyo City at noon the next day. Mujukan looked the same all the way. If he hadn't been breathing, I would have thought he was dead. Yuan quickly found an inn, cleaned the living space for Mujukan, and hurried back to the house where Uncle Mu lived. Waner, you're back. Mrsu happened to see Yuan enter the door, and she looked behind Yuan. Where is Chen'er? Why are you alone? Mrsu asked again without seeing her son. Mother, he is in space. Where are the Dabao and the two treasures? Yuan also asked. Oh, I'm eating, let's go in. Yuan followed Mrsu to the living room, and sure enough, the two babies were eating. Liangbao has grown up a lot. Big treasure and two treasures. Yuan stepped forward and held the two treasures in her arms. The two treasures stopped and turned to look at her. Liangbao looked at her with a strange look, and Yuan's nose was even sore. Don't recognize your mother, call me mother quickly. Mrsu saw her and stroked Liangbao's little head and said quickly. Mother, the two babies called out with milky sounds. Well, Dabao and Erbao, be good, eat quickly. When you're done, mother will take you to see your father. Liangbao nodded obediently. Mom, where is Xiaoqing? She left Xiaoqing behind. Oh, I went to Fangxi with Xiaoliu, and they have a very good relationship now, Mrsu said with a smile. Well, that's good. You're not going to leave this time, are you? Yuan thought for a while and said, Mom, you and Dad go and clean up. We are going to be away for a while, so come with us. She was worried that Rongxiu would definitely come to cause trouble, and Mujukan would definitely be his masterpiece. When the time comes and she threatens her with her relatives, then she can ignore their lives. Yuan pressed her eyebrows, wondering why she couldn't cultivate herself into an immortal properly. There were always people like this coming out to make trouble. Mrsu didn't have anything. After hearing what Yuan said, she immediately went to clean up. After the two babies finished eating, she took them into the space. Whether it succeeds or not, it will take at least a few days for the white fox to cross the tribulation. She still has some time, but she does not rule out the possibility that this guy will leave the white fox and come first. So Uncle Mew and the others packed up, and she immediately accepted them into the space. Then there was the Feng family. When Yuan went there, none of their family was there. She went to Yizhai again, but there was no one there either. She went to Fangxi again, where there were Yu Haoshan, Xiaoliu, and Xiaoqing. Yuan did not hesitate, put them into the space, and closed the shop. After doing this, Yuan Ke sent a message to each of them, asking them not to come back unless they had something to do. Yuan then left the city and flew towards Juya Forest. Sure enough, when Yuan Fei entered Juya Forest, Rong Xiu appeared in their yard with a gloomy look. The white fox failed to survive the tribulation after all and died under the thunder tribulation. He only made an explanation and hurried over, but he was still one step behind. He originally wanted to bring Mujukan with him, but he had someone in hand, so he was not afraid that Yuan would not obey. Unexpectedly, he was one step late. Rong Xiu flashed his figure and flew towards the Juya forest. Don't think that the woman's relatives are all in Juya forest, she must have gone there too. He didn't believe it and there was nothing he could do to her. Another thing he wanted to know was, how did she escape under his nose? And where to put the spiritual pet? That woman was fascinated, and he became more and more curious about her. After Yuan entered the Juya forest, she first found a hidden place to enter the space. In the space, Mrsu took the two treasures to play. Yuan entered the wooden house alone. Only whoever she let in could enter her wooden house. So they knew nothing about Mujukan's current situation and only assumed that he was practicing in seclusion. In the wooden house, Yuan gently stroked Mujukan's face with her hand. She checked carefully and found that he was poisoned, a poison that can make people stupid. Without the 5th level detoxification pill, Mujukan would have been like this all his life. The 5th level detoxification pill is a bit difficult for her. It can only be refined at the Yuanying stage. However, before advancing to the Yuanying stage, she has to find her elder brother and the others. Yuan changed Mujukan's clothes, combed his hair, kissed him on the lips, covered him with quilt before leaving the wooden house. Stayed with my sons for a while before I came out. Unable to receive a message transmission in the Juya forest, Yuan came out of the Juya forest and took out the transmission note. Seeing that there was no response, she entered the Juya forest again. After coming in, Yuan moved the little snake out, and the master and the servant started to look for people. Of course, when they encountered monsters, the little snake would go up to them, and they would be done with 3 strokes, 5 divisions, and 2 divisions. Master, it's that beauty, the little snake flew back and said to her. Little snake didn't know that she was kidnapped by Rong Xiu, so she was quite happy to see Rong Xiu. Where is this guy so fast? White Fox failed to cross the tribulation. Yuan finally sensed the contract with Baihu, and the contact was indeed severed. Master, he is a little far away from us, should we go over and have a look? Look around and avoid him, he is here to catch me. Yuan briefly talked about her being kidnapped. Master, you are unmoved by such a beautiful woman. Are you a woman? The little snake shook his head sadly. Yuan slapped it away, this perverted snake. Master, the little snake stopped in the air and looked at her with 2 triangular eyes. Yuan pressed her forehead, wondering why this guy is a male snake. Little snake, why don't you transform into a woman? I'll keep Rong Xiu for you. I think, is it possible? The little snake said angrily. That's a pity. Let's follow him. Yuan spread her hands and caught the little snake, and the master and servant held up Rong Xiu from a distance. End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 388. Chapter 388 How to get rid of him. The reason is that he is afraid that he will find his eldest brother and the others. He could find out that she had 2 sons, and someone around her must have checked everything out. Fortunately, Juya Forest is big enough and it is prohibited from flying, so it is not that easy to find people. A few days later. Boom boom boom. There was a sound of fighting, and the master and servant rushed over. Because those people were none other than Yu Heiran. She can find it, and so can Rongxiu. Sure enough, Rongxiu discovered her. Both of them ran towards the place where the fight was taking place. Yuan's speed could not match Rongxiu's. She quickly summoned the remaining 4 spiritual pets. "You 4, stop that person quickly. Hurry." The 4 spiritual pets received the order and ran towards Rongxiu in unison. Rongxiu had to stop and deal with 4 5th-level monsters. If he fought, he would definitely not be able to defeat 4 of them. "Damn woman, just wait." Rongxiu gritted his teeth. This woman was really capable of collecting so many 5th-level spiritual pets. He was even more reluctant to let her go. Yuan got the chance and was led by the little snake to the scene of the fight between Yu Heiran and the others. Brothers Yu Heiran, Yu Hao, Xiao, and Xiaoqi are all here. "Xiao Sier, why are you here?" Yu Heiran threw Johnson out and stepped back to ask her. "I've come to see you. I provoked a madman. I can't explain him in a few words. Please end the fight quickly and leave immediately." Yu Heiran nodded, "Okay." With the help of the spiritual pets, the battle ended quickly. "Let's clean up the battlefield in 2 or 3 times." Just as they were about to leave, Rongxiu appeared in front of them after a few after images. He quickly put a defensive shield on his body and stared at Yuan with an angry look. Yu Heiran's 4 brothers and 4 spiritual pets instantly protected Yuan. "Good job," Rongxiu said 3 words from between his teeth with a fierce look on his face. Getting rid of 4 5th-level monsters made him lose all his strength. 4 spiritual pets are also chasing after them now. Yuan just needs to let them surround them. "Whoever comes out to hang out doesn't have any special skills," Yuan said quietly. "Do you think you can protect everyone, for the rest of your life? One day you will kneel down and beg me." Rongxiu took a deep breath and said coolly. "That's my business, I don't need you to worry about it, but I hope no one will regret it that day. Please. It would be strange if I didn't blow up the wrong clan at that time." Yu Heiran frowned, hearing that the tone of the 2 people was not kind, neither enemies nor friends. He looked at his eyes and appearance, but he couldn't see through this man's cultivation. His appearance was 3 points more handsome than Mujukan, and he seemed. He took a step forward, performed a junior salute towards Rong, and said, "Senior, what did our 4th son offend? I hope Senior will explain." If they were really enemies, it would be easy to say that although they could not defeat them, they each had a 5th-level spiritual pet, so it was not certain who would lose and who would win. Rongxiu ducked to avoid Yu Heiran's gift. He fell in love with her sister and accepted the gift from a junior, but he didn't want it. He glanced at Yu Heiran. He was in his 80s and in the late stage of Jindan. He had good talent. In line with the investigation, this family has good talents. If they are given 200 to 300 years, this will be a strong family. He glanced at Yuan and said jokingly, "You 4 have offended me in so many ways. Which one do you want to know?" Yu Heiran frowned and said, "No matter what Senior thinks about Xiao Sier, she is a married woman and has a son. Although our brothers are not as good as you in cultivation, we can't just sit back and watch. Senior, think twice. Let's go." Yu Heiran waved his hand, hugged Yuan and left. Rongxiu raised the corner of his mouth. He was from a good family indeed, and he would not do anything compromising just because of his high level of cultivation. This made him accustomed to seeing those families who sent beauties to his door. The aura of Yu Heiran and his brothers was as full of majesty as his name. Let him think highly of them. It also made him reluctant to attack them. If they all join the wrong clan, it is not impossible for the wrong clan to dominate the Qinjiao continent in the future. but he understood that he would accept them into his clan unless he gave up the dead woman. Is he willing to give it up? Of course not willing to give it up. Xiao Sier, why did you meet this kind of person again? Yu Heiran asked her when she walked away. Yuan twitched her mouth. She had met him again, oh, including the Chu Yongxiao from before. I can only say that your sister is good-looking and charming. Poof. The brothers couldn't help but laugh out loud, relaxing the tense atmosphere. Where is Mujukan? In space. It's really easy for him to be a husband, Yu Heiran said, dissatisfied. Yuan knew that her elder brother had misunderstood, so she quickly said that Mujukan had been poisoned. Well, that man was merciful to him, Yu Heiran sighed. If it had been anyone else, he would have been lucky. Yuan had to admit that Rongxiu was indeed merciful. According to her temperament, she must have killed her. When she dealt with Mixu's matter back then, although the nature was different, she decisively killed her. If Rongxiu kills Mujukan, she will really destroy the Rong clan and Mujukan will not be able to save him. But this does not mean that she does not hate Rongxiu. Sooner or later she will settle the score. For now, hide first. There is no way, who makes their strength low. Xiao Sier, if he really uses his mother and the others to force you to submit, I think he should be taken in. Yu Hao, who had been silent, said. You really dare to think about it? Go find my mother and the others quickly. Yu Heiran immediately gave him a slap in the face. Yu Hao, brother, what I said is true. I can't guarantee that one day he will suddenly bring my mother and the others to us. What will we do then? It's a big deal. What are you afraid of? Well, we, Mr. Yu, are really not afraid. Yu Hao patted his chest. Yuan is not as simple as his elder brother thought. Today, Rongxiu did not expect that they all have 5th-level spiritual pets. He will be prepared next time. And they can make contracts with spiritual beasts, so he doesn't need to make a contract. He beats the monsters until they are willing to be used by him. Brother, you'd better enter the space. Yu Heiran was startled. Can you be alone outside? It's more convenient for me to run away alone than for everyone to run away together. Why run away? Fight when we come, Yu Hao said. We can contract spiritual beasts, but others can't. The 4 brothers fell silent for a moment. After a while, Yu Heiran said, well, it's time to go into retreat. Xiao Si, you have to pay attention to me alone. Yeah, Yuan nodded and took the person away. After closing, she and the little snake moved faster. Anyway, whenever she was about to confront Rongxiu, she would immediately return to space. The previous guess was correct. As expected, this guy invited a group of 5th-level monsters to look for him in the Juya forest. Yuan sighed. Rongxiu would not give up until he caught her. She didn't like this endless chase. How can we get rid of him? End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 389. Chapter 389. Knowing. Yuan wandered around alone for a few days, but never found anyone, nor did she meet Rongxiu. She didn't know if he had given up or was really dumped by her. Both of these are unlikely. The words her brother and Rongxiu said were not that shocking. It is estimated that this person is using some big trick. Sure enough, after a few days of calm, this guy showed up. No, he showed up with her mother's family of 4. Mother, Uncle Bai, Yan'er, Ye'er, why are you with him? Yuan greeted the 4 Feng family members who were walking towards her. Behind them, Rongxiu, who was dressed in black clothes, followed suit with a smile, but with that gorgeous face. No matter how you look at it, he looks like he deserves a beating. Haha, you guys really know each other. Mom started thinking about that coincidence. Mrs. Feng stepped forward, looked her daughter up and down, and breathed a sigh of relief when she saw that nothing happened. Does this guy no longer need to use blackmail? When did you use the gentle strategy? Sure enough, no one can understand the brain circuit of a madman. Fourth sister, where is my brother-in-law? Yanner asked. Yuan's face darkened. She did not answer in a hurry. She glanced sideways at Rongshiu. The man had his arms folded and seemed to be ready to listen. Want to know? Just listen, she said calmly. Your brother-in-law was bitten by a mad dog and is in a coma now. How come you were bitten by a mad dog? Feng frowned. Bai Zi looked at Rongshiu, unconsciously holding Feng's hand and leaning closer to Yuan. Yanner's mind was very quick, and he calmly put his hand on the spirit beast bag. The young master Rong said that he knew the fourth sister, and the expression on the fourth sister's face was not as simple as recognition. Only Yer was confused. Fourth sister, where are the mad dogs? The world of immortality is not a secular world. When the rapeseed flowers appear, mad dogs will run all over the mountain. The one behind you, Yuan said through gritted teeth. Back there, the four of them turned around and saw Rongshiu's dark face. Yuan saw his change of expression. She had been prepared for it. At this moment, her consciousness moved and she led the person into the space. His consciousness will be imprisoned by him later, and her mother's family is in his hands. She doesn't know what tricks Rongshiu will use, and she doesn't dare to gamble. I would rather expose the space than risk the lives of my loved ones. Mujukan is still lying on the bed in the space. Damn it, disappeared again. Rongshiu punched the air hard, and a deep pit was immediately created on the ground. He knew this woman was cunning and sent someone over to her. How could he be so stupid? Let's see if we'll give her a chance next time. In the space, Yuan felt like she was surviving a disaster, and her legs felt a little weak. Xiao Sier, what's going on? In front of the wooden house, Mrs. Feng helped Yuan sit down and asked. Bai Zi and his son all looked at her. Mom, what should I say about this? That madman insists on me marrying him. How do you think this is possible? Yuan pressed her temples and smiled bitterly. Feng Shi frowned. Then what happened to Mujukan's coma? What's wrong with Chen'er? At this time, Mrsu and Uncle Mu came over holding two treasures. Mrsu let go of Dabao, stepped forward and grabbed Yuan's hand, looking at her, and asked nervously. He was poisoned, mother, don't worry, his life is not in danger. Yuan knew that she couldn't keep it secret, so she said so. Where is he? Mrsu grabbed Yuan tightly and asked eagerly. Yuan let her scratch her hand until it hurt. She said, Mom, he is in the wooden house. He is asleep now. He will be fine once the poison is detoxified. Let Mom go and see him, okay? Mrsu couldn't stop her tears from falling. How could her good son be poisoned? Who would harm her son? That damned person is still looking for the place where Yuan and the others disappeared, and he can go through the entire Juya forest. Yuan sighed, waved her hand, and the door of the wooden house opened. Mrsu stumbled and ran into the house, and soon her voice was heard, a suppressed cry. Uncle Mu took the two treasures in and watched silently. The two babies watched for a while, then they climbed into bed and called Daddy. Yuan looked at the indescribable discomfort in her heart, and felt a deep sense of powerlessness in her heart. Her consciousness suddenly entered the red earth. Seeing her inexplicable disappearance, Mrs. Feng didn't know where she had gone, so she started looking around. Don't look for her. Zer feels bad. Let her be alone. Bai Zi patted Feng on the back and said. Uncle Bai, mother, what's wrong with you? Yu Hairan and his brothers came over in a hurry. Ms. Feng pointed toward the room. Yu Hairan looked around and saw Mrsu lying on the bed crying bitterly. Mujukan was sleeping on the bed. The two babies were lying on Mujukin obediently. Uncle Mu patted Mrsu's back with a heavy look on his face. Yuharan felt cold and asked, "Mom, what's going on? Where is the fourth child?" Ms. Feng sat down on the stool, sighed, and told the story again. "Why did your sister encounter such a bad thing? She thought that Mr. Rong was some kind of good person, but he turned out to be a big-tailed wolf." Ms. Feng pounded the table and said angrily. "People look like humans and dogs," Yuharan said and walked towards the wooden house. He checked that Mujukin's life was indeed not in danger, and he helped Mrsu up, and, brother-in-law is indeed not in danger. Let's go out and don't disturb him. I believe Xiao Ser, she will find a way. If you do this, she feels even more uncomfortable. What we have to do now is to take care of Dabeo and Urbeo so that she won't be distracted. Grandpa Mu and Brother Mu's family are still outside, so we must not stand in the way of Xiao Ser. Yes, madam, let's take care of the big and small treasures and don't cause trouble to Wan. Dad and Yunar are still outside. When Uncle Mu heard what Yuharan said, he was shocked. Knowing the seriousness of the matter, he immediately persuaded Mrsu. Mrsu's mind was no longer confused. She stood up, wiped away her tears, and she and her husband left the cabin with the child in their arms. "My mother-in-law, don't be sad." Mrs. Feng stepped forward to pick up her bao and said to Mrsu. Mrsu waved her hand and said, "Okay, we are not sad. This girl, Wanur, has to shoulder such a big thing by herself, we can't help each other. Let's go back to practice. Only strong fists can be useful." Bai Zi glanced at everyone and said, "Yes, let's all go back to practice, madam, and ask Xiaoqing to bring the two treasures," Uncle Mu said to Mrsu. Mrsu nodded. Afterwards, everyone went back to the house to practice with their own thoughts. In Uncle Mu's room, Mrsu could not calm down enough to practice. The old man and his eldest son's family that Yuharan mentioned just now were still outside. She was feeling uneasy and sat in the room worrying. In Feng's room, Bai Zi, Feng, and Yuharan were sitting in silence in the living room. Feng thought that the four of them almost let Rongxiu threaten Xiao Ser, and the more she thought about it, the more frightened she became. "Boss, Shitu and the others are still outside. What should we do if Xiao Ser is like this?" End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 390. Chapter 390. Jumping off a cliff. "Mom, when Xiao Ser comes out later, I'll go talk to her." Yuharan didn't know how to continue. This was the first time he had encountered such a thing that changed people's outlook on life. The dignified spirit has undergone major repairs, and the person looks so beautiful, but behaves so eccentrically. It doesn't matter that Xiaoxi is not married, but being able to marry him is a nice happy event. What does this mean now? Is it possible that it would be a big joke in the world to allow one daughter of the fourth son to marry two husbands? It happens that they are weak in strength, so there are so many of them who are Xiao Ser's weakness. Ms. Feng could only nod. "What is your sister's fate?" "Mom, please take a rest, son, go take a look." Yuharan stood up, said hello to Bai Zi and left the house. He came to the wooden house and sat on a stool in a daze. Yuan sat by the black pool, wiping her tears. It's not her character that makes her sad in spring and autumn. For now, everyone is safe, right? Even if she was caught, he didn't want her life. When you think about it, it won't be so uncomfortable. This is purely about restraining yourself and scaring yourself. She suddenly appeared in front of the wooden house. "Xiao Ser, are you okay?" Yuharan asked her concernedly when he saw that she was back. Yuan shook her head. "Brother, I'm fine. Please check on Mujukin from time to time." After speaking, he took out a bottle and gave it to him, and then said, "Feed him some of this every day." I have to go find Grandpa and the others. Xiao Sier, my eldest brother will go out with you, so you can take care of me. Yuan held Yu Heiran down and said, no, brother, you don't have to go anywhere. Wanting to get out of this predicament, Yuan thought about it and found someone. She immediately left the continent with them. From now on, it would be just her and Mujukan who would travel around the world. Last time she took Liang Bao out for a walk, she was targeted by someone. She felt that their family was of Tang Monk's body type. Okay, then be careful alone, Yu Heiran patted her on the shoulder and warned her. Yuan nodded, went into the room to see Mujukan, and then left the space. As soon as she left the space, she escaped into the earth, and she escaped all the way in one breath before escaping out of the ground. Oh, woman, you really do have a secret. Rong Xiu from a distance realized that she had really come out of the place where she disappeared. He followed her closely. He wanted to see what big secret this woman had. Haha, life space, I hope it is what he guessed. Otherwise, it would be impossible to explain where so many spiritual pets came from, the people who disappeared with him, and the sudden disappearance and reappearance of her, but he still couldn't find her. Haha, you woman, I'm going to kill you. Yuan released the little snake, and the master and servant moved closer to the outer edge of the forest. Shitu and the others would not come to the central area. Although many 5th-level monsters had been destroyed, the central area was still very dangerous. 5 days passed, and Yuan did not find anyone. Instead, she hunted many monsters. Gila gila. On this day, Yuan sat on a big stone and drank a large pot of spiritual spring water. Damn woman, you are very leisurely, a lazy but nice voice sounded. Yuan stood up fiercely and threw out 4 spiritual pets. 4 spiritual pets immediately protected her. The little snake lay on Yuan's shoulder, staring at Rong Xiu with its triangular eyes. Yuan was too lazy to pay attention to him and stepped back. The 4 spiritual pets followed her and retreated, preventing Rong Xiu from getting closer. Rong Xiu walked toward Yuan neither fast nor slow. He frowned and said, damn woman, am I that scary? Yuan stepped back and shook his head, no, I have never been afraid of anyone, including you. I just don't like you. Then why did you run away when you saw me? Yuan rolled her eyes. He could ask such an idiotic question. She sneered, hey, aren't you talking nonsense? I am not as strong as you, but you use the people around me to threaten me. Isn't it that I like you? Like it, Yuan snorted coldly. If he likes it, he would hurt the people he cares about. What a idea. Yuan really wanted to make him look like shit. I don't like you because you hurt my husband. I don't have the strength, otherwise I would have killed you long ago. Little snake, you 4, kill them for me, kill them. Yuan suddenly became murderous. All the anger and resentment broke out at this moment. Shush shush. The 5 spiritual pets instantly grew in size and attacked Rong Xiu in unison. Rong Xiu was also irritated. He waved his hand, and 7 or 8 5th-level monsters came out to meet the 5 spiritual pets. He raised his leg, took a few wrong steps and came to Yuan, and stretched out his hand to strangle her neck. When the little snake saw it, it jumped back to Yuan and immediately released the power of blood in its body. As if feeling the pressure from ancient times, the monster beasts all stopped, trembling, and crawled on the ground with their heads facing the direction of the little snake. Yuan saw Rong Xiu's blood-red eyes, angry expression, and that shocking claw. She grabbed the little snake and jumped without hesitation into the misty cliff behind her. In the mist, Yuan twitched her hands and feet a few times, not knowing where she fell. At the edge of the cliff, Rong Xiu's clawed hands remained as they were before. He stared blankly at the bottom of the cliff. The woman would not follow him even if she jumped off the cliff. His consciousness was released, and as soon as it came into contact with the fog, his wisp of consciousness was sucked down and lost contact. Rong Xiu sat down on the cliff. This kind of frustration was something he had never experienced in his life. He had always had a smooth life. He had whatever he wanted, and even if he didn't have it, he would grab it. This is the first time in my life that I have failed. He was also defeated at the hands of a married woman and a little gold elixir. I don't know how long it took, but Rong Xiu glanced at the empty cliff and disappeared here with a few steps. On the other side, Yuan regained consciousness, and the sound of waves crashing in her ears. She blinked and opened her eyes. What she saw was a blue sky and white clouds. What entered her nose was the unpleasant smell of sea. She was photographed on the beach below. Yuan moved her body, it hurt. With a flash of consciousness, a healing elixir appeared in her mouth. She opened her mouth and the elixir entered her mouth. After a while, she sat down on the ground and used her spiritual consciousness to look for the little snake. She remembered that the little snake had been protecting her when she fell. The fall was so fast that she couldn't even enter the space. 10 feet away from her, the little snake lay paralyzed on the beach, its little body almost buried. Yuan rushed over and picked it up carefully. This idiot will use all his spiritual power to protect her. His body was covered with wounds, half of his tail was almost broken, and he was dying. They are no longer beautiful. Yuan's consciousness moved, and she took it into the wooden house, and poured some soul liquid and healing elixir into it. After its breath stabilized, put it next to Mujukan, kiss it gently on the top of its head, and kiss Mujukan again before stepping out of the space. End of this chapter.